This video is definitely going to be a little bit different. I'm in a different location. For most of my regular viewers, they know that I live in San Francisco, but currently I'm in a different part of the country. My parents live in a different part of the country, and I am visiting and doing caregiving. I'm originally from Louisiana. My family has long roots in Louisiana, specifically in New Orleans, and I moved to San Francisco in my mid 20s for work. And I've lived off and on in the Bay Area since I was 25 for various jobs. And now, 20 plus years, I own a home in San Francisco and consider San Francisco home. But of course, my parents don't live in San Francisco. So here I am. My parents are older. They're in their 80s now. They've been married for going on 60 years. And I have an older sister who does the majority of the caregiving responsibilities. And thank goodness for that. My sister works as an educational psychologist, and she has the good fortune of being able to work from home. And she had a home in a different part of the country, but made the very bold and brave decision to give up her home, rent out her home, and come and live with my parents. And I'm eternally grateful for the sacrifice that she made to her life and her career to be able to provide my parents with some level of care and stability in their older years. So I deal with caregiving and with aging a lot as a financial advisor and as a financial professional. And I wanted to do this video as a financial professional, but also as a human being. And one thing I will say of the experience of having two aging parents is as a nation, we have to do better with caregiving. We really have no safety nets whatsoever, whether it's caregiving for an elderly adult, caregiving for a special needs child, caregiving for a disabled, debilitated adult. We have no systems really in place in the United States to help people who do caregiving. And in a capitalist society, caregiving services or caregiving responsibilities are not compensated or acknowledged or valued. For my sister, who worked as an educational psychologist, she's now had to scale back to part-time. But when a person scales back their career to part-time, that means they have less money. That means they're contributing less to Social Security. They're contributing less to their 401k. It's a huge financial blow to that person for a period of time to take on caregiving responsibilities because our society makes no leeway for someone who is caregiving. Now that I've stepped into the role, and I've stepped into the role because my sister needed a break and took a vacation, I see how hard her work is. I've been here for several days and I'm just exhausted. I'm working full time, and I totally understand why my sister cannot work full time in this role. My parents need a lot. And I'm the kind of the errand and task go monkey now. And I spend a lot of time out of my house running errands for my parents, whether it's going to the bank or going to the post office or getting something from the pharmacy or picking something up from the store, or can you get this? Can you do that? Can you? And I knew in a very abstract way that taking care, elder care was a lot of responsibility, but now actually doing it, I understand why people can't work full time in this role and why people end up dropping back to part time or leaving the workforce altogether to do this, because this is in a way a full time job in of itself. My personal experience with long term care. So when I became a financial advisor back in 2016, I worked with clients, and I became very knowledgeable about long term care policies. And initially, I saw the value in long term care policies. I was like, this is great. It's a protective cap for people to protect their families and protect their wealth and protect their spouses as they get old. This is a good opportunity for people who can qualify for long term care policies. And in the decade I've been doing this work, I've had an evolution of thinking with long term care. And my mother has a long term care policy, and dealing with her long term care policy helped shape my thinking because I got to see it from the perspective of a financial advisor that gives people these policies, but also as daughter of someone who needs the long term care policy and accessing the benefits and the responsibilities of accessing the benefits of these long term care policies. And I won't name the company that my mom has with her long term care. I've dealt with this company before. I have several clients with this type of policy, but my mom bought this policy a very long time ago, like decades ago, in another part of the country where we're living somewhere else. Thank God she did. But been a living nightmare accessing benefits and sustaining benefits with this long term care policy. And it all came to a head recently where my mom went into a nursing home at the end of 2024. And there are some things that are clearly defined in her policy that are supposed to happen that's her rights as an owner of this policy. And this long-term care company did not want to live up to the agreements that they had made in this contract 20 plus years ago when my mom signed this contract. And so it became this protracted disagreement with this company. They made a ruling. I filed an amendment. They asked for more information. I had to go to Medicare and get official Medicare billing documentation, which is quite detailed and quite difficult. It is basically a different language. You have to be able to decipher Medicare billing codes. Submitted that again to the company. They acknowledged they owed us the money, said they were going to pay out, then didn't, then got into another protracted issue with the company. And what became very apparent to me as a human being and as a financial advisor, this was an attempt by the company to get us to give up and go away. Dealing with these companies is very, very difficult and very, very tiring. And if you are not a financial professional, if you are not financially skilled, they will eat you alive because they're going to bury everything in legalese and minutia. And I actually had to go get my mom's contract from 25 years ago, read it, point it out in the paragraph and subsection where it said she was due this benefit and where they weren't living up to the agreement to get them to back down. But most people don't have access to a 25-year-old contract or know where it is or know how to interpret it or read it. And it's still required. I probably made 35 plus calls to the company to get this paid, and they still were not paying up. And what was the turning point was that I decided I needed to go to the insurance commissioner of the state and report them for non-payment and non-compliant with the contract. And I did that, and I did that in multiple states. We reside in one state, but the contract was underwritten in Louisiana, so I did it across 2 states. And once the state insurance commissioners received the case, reviewed the documentation, called me, got my side of the story, and got their side of the story, within 48 hours, they paid up. They paid up. I have been working on getting them to pay out for half a year, for 6 months, constant phone calls, constant conversations. I talked to at least a dozen and a half different people at this organization, and they would not pay us what they owed us. But within probably 48 hours of talking to the state insurance commissioner, they paid us what they owed us. And I I'm sure when my mom bought this long-term care policy 25 years ago, she didn't anticipate that this would happen. But what it underscored for me as a financial professional and as a kid of someone who's managing my mom's long-term care policy is if you have one of these policies, if you have a long-term care policy, you have to make sure you have an advocate on your side that has the time, resources, and energy to go after these companies to be able to live out the terms of their agreements, or you run the serious risk of being screwed over by these companies. And it was disappointing because I could tell the company knew they owed us the money. We were in agreement. There were people who worked for the company who told me, just flat out told me, we owe you the money. We're going to pay it, blah, 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 blah. And then they didn't do it. And this is a very common strategy I'm seeing among insurance companies and the insurance industries. Basically, they want to distract you, confuse you, frustrate you, and hope you will just go away and leave them alone. In terms of my evolution and thinking of long term care, I used to recommend it for a lot of people. And I used to recommend it for younger people because it's easy to get long term care when you're young. It's easy peasy to get long term care when you're young. Once you get into your 50s, it becomes much more difficult. And if you sneeze too hard beyond the age of 55, you have to go through a pretty complicated underwriting process at that point to get long-term care. And a lot of people just don't qualify because of prior health history or prior issues in their past. I myself, yes, I do have a long-term care policy. I bought my long-term care policy when I was about 37, but I made sure I didn't get the same type of long-term care policy as my mother. My mom's policy requires receipts for reimbursements. So it's constantly this Easter egg hunt of receipts to submit to the company for reimbursement. I think I finally got that on auto payment, but to get that set up and get that going, that required at least about 3 to 6 months of submitting receipts and going back and forth with her nursing home and the insurance company. And it required a lot of effort. I made sure I got a policy that wasn't receipts for reimbursement and wouldn't require that level of activity. I also made sure that I got a policy that what my doctor would make the call that I meet the qualifications for this long-term care policy. The company that my mom's long-term care policy works with requires medical documentation from her doctor, but also requires medical documentation from their own doctor to make the call that she should be receiving benefits on their long-term care policy. And there was a period of time that we had doctors coming in and out of the house, and it was like, we just did this. We just did this a month and a half ago. Why do we need another doctor coming to the house or another nurse doing this assessment? Or, my mom's primary care doctor, who she's had for 15 years, is saying, yes, she needs this. Why do we need to do this again and again and again and again? It was wearing my mom out. It was wearing me out. It was wearing my sister out, my dad out. And it's part of their strategy. It's just part of their strategy to do this. So you will get tired and you will give up and you will not file a claim with them, and they can basically sweep this under the rug and say that they did whatever they needed to do as a long-term care company without doing anything to provide the level of service that they are contractually obligated to provide. So, yeah, this is one of my more personal videos. As much as I'm a financial advisor and a wealth manager, I'm also a human being who does very human things with money, with retirement planning, with long-term care. I am also, or my sister is also in the trenches of elder care and caregiving services. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you like and what you don't like. And if you found this information useful, please do like, share, and subscribe.